For weeks we have been talking about the thousands of Australian workers who, because of the work that they do, have not been able to see their families for months. The FIFO workers that are stuck behind the hard barrier of Western Australia is ridiculous. We've shown you the wives left behind. You've heard the workers tell the stories about how their kids cry every night because they don't know when Dad's going to be home. You heard the family in South Australia who get their dad back for just a couple of weeks, but they're trying to pick a time to tell their child who's on the autism spectrum about when Dad has to go back to work. Now, men and women deserve the right to earn a living and see their family. It's fundamental. And you would think that this is something that a government like Western Australia would understand when, of course, their economy is so heavily dependent on the hard work of these people. Now, the WA government has tried to turn around and say, well, for $20,000, pick up your life and come and live here. But as we showed you, the family in South Australia with that autistic kid, they can't just do that. All of the support network that is required for their family would disintegrate. They go to the back of the queue before being able to build it all up again. Well, thankfully, there are people who are trying to fight who will have way more influence over the government in Perth than I will ever have. It is, of course, proud members of the union movement and the CFMEU's Mining and Energy Secretary in WA is Greg Busson, and he joins us now. G'day, Greg. Thank you for joining us, mate. Who knew the CFMEU and Paul Murray Live, Sky News, would be on the same side of an issue for just a few damn minutes?
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me, and we'll see if we can work together on something.
Now, this is the thing, because I mean, you know it, they're your members. What are you hearing about how desperate they are getting now?
Yeah, it's come to the stage where they're coming up to the 4-month mark, and these people, like if you go on a 6-month contract, you know you're getting closer to the end. So every day gets closer to the end of your swing. We're coming up to, as I said, coming up to a 4-month mark, and these people, there's no end in sight. So it's about time that they're allowed to go home and see their families and try and work with the government to get some way to get these people to have the prior exemption to not have to isolate once they do come back to WA.
Because when they are isolating, they're doing so without pay. They're having to soak up annual leave, and obviously that is so precious when you want to spend that with your family, not sitting in a hotel room. For those that don't understand the system, can you try to explain to people, say if a worker came from, let's say, New South Wales or Queensland, and they end up in a mine in Western Australia, how long do they spend at Perth Airport? Who do they see at Perth Airport? How much exposure would they have to the general community in Western Australia?
Well, prior to the hard border coming in, when they were still moving across and they were able to come in and out, they had the exemption where they come as long as they sort of within the next 3 or 4 hours after they landed in Perth, they would stay at the airport and then catch a connecting flight to the Pilbara.
So we're not talking about people who are ending up spending a couple of days, go for a little trip to Subi, a little run over to Fremantle, mix around, buy some stuff. As you say, they're there, it's a transit, then they go off where they're going. Also, when they get to work, they're tested almost every day, aren't they?
And that's the conversation we've had so far with the government is that while these people are at work, they're tested more regularly than anyone else in the situation. They're tested every couple of days. And when they also have to do a test when they come back from Perth. They do the COVID test, so 48 hours before they fly, they have to do another test to go to site. So we're happy to work with the government where if they come back from the East Coast, they would do 48 hours before they fly back to Perth, would do the COVID test in the East Coast, land in Perth. We're happy, depending on the whatever deal we get put up, where we would consider too that if a person stays for a couple of days, does another test in Perth, if that's all clear after the 48 hours, then they should be allowed to return to the mine site.
Yeah, surely this seems logical. It seems like, the panic has passed and this seems very logical. How far do you get with government? What sort of no do they throw? How close do you think we can get to this common sense?
I've just been very receptive to the conversation until last week. I think the Victorian things set things back a little while, but we're still happy to continue to work with the government, have the discussion and try and get a deal that suits all. We understand, I think the McGowan government's done a good job managing the border so far and managing the virus, but these people here need to get home and see their families. When they come back, if they have to, at the end of the day, if they have to isolate, it shouldn't be at the employee's expense. They're out there carrying the back of the nation and they should get some respect and some payback for I think if they can't get the exemption, I think some special leave should be given to them, where they can get for what they do there in isolation without expense of their own, losing their entitlements and having to pay for it.
Yeah, bloody oath. Greg, let's keep talking all the way through. Strength to your arm, strength to the movement, and look, all the best to get a result here. I hope we can do it because it's normal people who deserve to see their families. Good on you, mate.
Thanks very much for the interest in the story, and hopefully we'll get a win one day.
Bloody oath. We'll keep going. Good on you, Greg. Thank you, mate.